You are listening to the Chasing PRs podcast. Today, we're talking about goal setting and the importance of having process goals along with your time and pace goals, and how to set realistic goals. Stay tuned.
Hi, we are your hosts, Rochelle Weeks and Diego Alcubierre. And with over 20 years of combined experience in coaching and physiotherapy, we created this podcast to help everyday runners who want to make the most out of their training and achieve new personal records while managing work, family, and life outside running. Welcome.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Chasing PRs. I am Diego.
And I'm Rochelle.
And we're super happy to be with you during this holiday season.
Yeah. Time to focus on running again now that I've just eaten and drank all the things.
The holidays are over. Now you start to reset and, okay, what's next year about?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to say three things about last week's episode before we start. One is that we just uploaded like the graphs. Do you remember we talked about the glucose and being above 120 milligrams per deciliter and stuff like that? We just uploaded a few graphs to the Instagram account, Chasing PRs Podcast, so you can see how your glucose, or my glucose in that case, behave when you are running and when you eat or you drink Gatorade and Goose. It's really interesting to see if you want to see how, and it's very similar for everyone. When you start to run, your glucose goes down because you start to using it, and that's why you need to start to drink Goose and Gatorade to bring it back up. So those graphs are there if you want to see them.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at all the spikes and the lows.
Yeah, and you can see this. Everything is explained there.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I forgot, I think, two very interesting and important things about my last year, and I think are one of the easiest ways to improve as a runner. One is hang out with faster runners than you. Since I've been training consistently. When I was doing triathlons, I was part of 2 or 3 teams and I improved. But since I started focus on running in 2018, I wasn't part of a team. And the past year and a half, I've been part of a team, and there are faster runners than me, and I think that's really motivating and empowering. So I think that's a great tip. There's a saying, like, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out, even if your finances, your health, your running in this case. So if you hang out with faster runners than you're going to improve.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that for like any sport you're doing, because when I was younger, I was a competitive swimmer. I didn't run a whole lot when I was young in school. I swam practices like 9 times a week. And my first year at university, I swam with the varsity team.
Okay.
And I was in Labrador in an 18-meter pool, and I was the fastest female in Labrador, a community of 10,000 people. And so I was swimming and getting a little bit better every year. And then I graduated grade 12 and I went and joined the Mud Seahawks in St. John's.
Okay.
And I was not the fastest swimmer on that team. I was one of the slowest on the varsity squad. And my personal best times all got faster. And it was a 50-meter pool, so there was more room, but everybody was faster than me. So I was chasing all these people. And I remember doing a swim meet, and my coach from Goose Bay came and he said, "Oh, they must be really working on you because you really improved your various times." And I said, "Oh, I get way less attention now because I'm not one of the fast ones. Yeah. But I just have people to chase." To chase
and to motivate you. And yeah, for sure. That's
definitely helped.
Yeah. And the other one is stop comparing yourself. I even erased my Strava last year because I just started to get these local legends and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't need this. And I don't need to be comparing myself to people I don't even know, right? Because sometimes, you have the fastest segment. Did they run it just that segment? Or they were professional, stuff like that. So you start to compare yourself with people that you don't even know, and now with social media that everyone post their good times and their good training. So stop comparing yourself to other runners. I think it's very important to also improve as a runner. Just try to become your best self.
Yeah, I think don't compare yourself, but observe what others are doing, especially if you think what they're doing is working and might benefit you, but just be careful that you don't, get jealous or try to do the exact same thing they're doing. Like for example, myself and one of the girls on our team, Crystal, we are both doing Cornwall Marathon. We both have the same, or St. Lawrence Marathon, I think it's called. We both have the same time goal of under 3:30. Her program is going to go up to 100-kilometer weekly mileage, and mine's going up to 85.
Okay.
So I could get all weird,
Stressed and- yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going to not run as fast because she's run further. But I know why our coach did that, because Crystal just did a marathon. We've talked about her. She just did county, so her mileage has recently been up in the 80s and 90s, whereas mine only hit 70 doing the Boston half.
Yeah.
So I could get all bent into shape, or I could just recognize that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So don't compare yourself to others and join a team of faster runners. Don't compare with them. Just use them as motivation and inspiration and copy things that work.
Yeah.
Right.
Learn from them too. Pick their brains.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's very important. I'm very annoying about that. I just asking why. What did you do? What was your pace? What did you? Yeah, it helps. Just having that information in your brain over the long time. It starts to click sometimes. Oh, I remember hearing this or that or stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was just like a little extra that we thought about over the last episode. Let's talk really quickly about our weeks, because we have a lot to talk about goals today. We're talking about, we say this at the beginning of the episode, but we were talking about goals, different types of goals, that not everything is about time and or your pace. But let's talk quickly about our last week of training. How was your week?
Last week actually ended up being pretty good, even though Christmas Day and Christmas Eve were on the weekend. So I did my long run on Thursday. So I ran to our group run, did the group run, and ran back. So I got in 16K Thursday. And then I managed to hit 50K for the week. So
Okay.
I was happy. Yeah.
Cool. You're not doing any speed sessions, anything?
No, not yet. Which I find when you're not doing speed, it's easy to move your long run, because
Yeah.
you don't want to move your long run the day after your speed session or the day before. But the only real quality run I have right now is a long run.
A long
So
run.
it was easy to
Right now, your goal is to build mileage.
Yeah.
It's the exact same as me. I'm not doing any speed works. It's just to build mileage. Yeah, I ran on the treadmill on Saturday, on Christmas Eve, because the weather was terrible. It was super cold and windy. And then my goal was to run 21K or 13 miles, a half marathon on Sunday, but I ended up running only 18 kilometers. And I think for the next few weeks, I'm going to adjust my mileage. I'm not probably going to go into that 70K goal I have, but I'm going to be running the same amount of time, because I'm running super slow, super slow.
Because the footing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible. My hamstrings are super tired. My glutes are super tired. I wanted to run yesterday 15K in 1 hour and 15 minutes, and I ended up running 13K in 1 hour and 10. So it's really, the time-wise was really close, but yeah, just the footing, and I'm tired. And so, yeah, I'm going to focus more on time for the next few weeks. And then when spring start to come around and the footing improve, start focus on pacing again.
We have a lot of snow in Ottawa, so it's been,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to run on the treadmill today. 'cause
Way
we've
worse
got-
than last year. I remember we were talking last year, and until mid-January was, sidewalks are awesome this time of year.
Yeah, that we haven't, I feel like we can't keep up, because every time the sidewalks are almost clear, we get another dump. Like we got a lot of snow last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that's our training. Hopefully you can learn from it and adjust your training based on the weather and the holidays and Christmas and
Yeah.
getting drunk on New
All
Year's
the
Eve.
food and drinks. Yeah.
Okay, so today we're talking about goals. We want to talk about 3 types of goals. One, it's going to be the start of the year, January. Then what we call process goals. We're going to explain what those are and what kind of process goals you can focus on. And then outcome goals. What are outcome goals? And a few interesting and smart ways to come up with realistic goal times for your races. So why don't we start with January 1st? Because I think you have a lot of experience with this, because most injuries occur in the beginning of the year. So what do you recommend focusing? What what are your goals for January? What do you recommend people goals need to be?
I think the most important thing is to start where you are, not where you want to be.
Okay,
So
that is very interesting. Yeah.
take the runner who December has been really busy. They have family. There's been a lot of cooked meals and shopping and just they've missed a lot of runs and they've eaten and drank a lot of things. So they're feeling, January 2nd comes and they feel kind of gross because maybe they've been overeating because it's Christmas. And 2, they haven't been getting a lot of their runs in. And so now motivation's really, really high because it's
New Year.
New Year's.
Yeah.
And then, so they start running a lot. So maybe they ran 6 to 8 times total in January or in December. And then January, they start running 6 days a week, 5 days a week.
Because that's what their training program has on the scale.
Yeah. And maybe that's what they want to do. So mentally they want to do that, but physically they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because they're going to overload their tendons and joints and likely get injured. So there's a lot of run streaks in January. So you run every day. And I get people every year who are injured from doing those run streaks.
Really? And maybe you try to hit the kilometers you were doing in October, right? So
you have to you have to earn that mileage. Like if you were doing 50-kilometer weeks in October and then November was more 40, December was like 10, you can't just jump back up to 50. You have to build back up very gradually. And that's 90% of running injuries are happening because people just do too much too soon with regards to volume and intensity. So I think the big thing is just, it's okay that you want to go, but maybe prioritize some cross training if you haven't been running lately. Or
build up your mileage slowly.
Yeah.
I think we talk about this a lot in the off-season episode. What's off-season, the importance of keeping your mileage up so you don't start the year or your training block from scratch pretty much or with really low mileage. And I think the other interesting thing is that we all see runners and no runners, and we are like, you have all the motivation to start the year with everything. But if your race doesn't demand that, because you are running in late May, in early June, your training block doesn't need to start in January. So take that into consideration. A lot of people are going to start their training blocks on January, but a lot of people are going to continue their off-season during January. So be very mindful about what are your goals for next year, when are your races, and it's probable or possible that your jump on mileage doesn't need to start in January. It needs to start until February or March, depending on your next big race.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people know they don't have to start a formal program yet, but they are really highly motivated to work out and maybe they feel like they've got a few pounds on from Christmas. So I think the best thing you could do is if you haven't been running a lot and now you are motivated to run a lot, maybe you run 2-3 days a week and the other, maybe 3 days a week. So you have a rest day, you swim or you bike or you do the elliptical or you ski, something that's low impact on the tendons and the joints. So if you're super motivated to get fit again,
you can do it, but just not running that much.
Yeah. And then maybe the first 2 weeks you run 3 times and you do one of those things 3 times. And then after that, maybe you run 4 times and you swim or bike or whatever 2 times. And then you slowly run more and do the cross training less if that's the goal.
Yeah. What I did in 2018 and 2019 that I didn't have any real races at the beginning of the year. There's this thing in the US called Class Pass. And I think it's very interesting. I would really hope that there was something like this in Canada, that you pay like a monthly fee. I think it was $100 and you get like 20 credits and you can use those 20 credits in a lot of different studios and gyms. So I was in Boston at that time. I went to rowing classes, yoga classes, CrossFit classes, boxing classes. I just kept active during December and January because I was super motivated. January is here. I want to build my fitness again. I stayed as active as possible. I ran 2 or 3 days a week, but I just stay as active as possible. And if you are in a gym that has classes and spinning and all that, you can do it and build your fitness. It's not going to be your running fitness, but when you start running, you're going to be overall stronger and fitter.
That's really cool. And it's nice to have variety because if you're not doing a high volume of running, it's nice to do a bunch of random
I love
different
that.
stuff. Yeah.
CrossFit and rowing, boxing classes. It was super interesting, and it's awesome. It's not that expensive, and it's a huge thing in the US. In big cities, I guess if you go to a small city, you don't have that many options. But Boston, you have gyms every 2 blocks.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. So, okay, that's about January. Just take it easy. And I think you put it perfectly at the beginning. Start with where you are, not where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think the other thing to mention before we go on to the process goals, with the January goal, I've learned this in the past. So say you're someone who splurges over Christmas and you do have extra weight on compared to November.
I think 99% of runners have extra weight in January.
Yeah.
At least I know. Yeah.
100%. Even just because maybe you didn't splurge, but you're running less. But my family, we love Christmas. We have all these traditions. There's Chinese food and big turkey dinners and beer. Like we eat and drink a lot over Christmas. So in January, usually in the past, I've been like frustrated and want to lose the weight really quickly. And you'll talk to people who are like, I'm going to count calories and I'm going to restrict this. I'm an intermittent fast. I'm going to skip breakfast. But for the most part, if you go back to what you were doing before Christmas, which most of the time people are eating, if you're running regularly and you're training for races, it's a well-balanced kind of variety of food. And as long as you're not overeating, that weight will come off. And it's better if it comes off over a month as opposed to like a week. So don't panic and think you got to do all these crazy new cool things to lose weight. Just do what you were doing before and watch it slowly come off, especially if you're running regularly again.
Yeah, I think the goal is to be like at your ideal waist rate or the race weight you want to be at race day, not during training. And I heard a lot about, I think it was Galen Rupp that says that he's always a few pounds over his race weight, ideal race weight. But he knows like 2 weeks before he starts to eat perfectly and he can lose 2, 3, 4 pounds in 2 weeks and be race ready. But he's not always, and he's a super professional athlete and
he's a marathon runner in the States, right?
He came like I don't believe he's ever won a big major marathon, but he's only in the top 5. So yeah, you need to be race weight ready on race day, no 3 months before.
Yeah, not in January.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So goals are a very interesting thing and complicated thing, right? But we try to think about goals in 2 different ways or 2 formats of goals. Process goals, that is things you can do every day or consistently or that are not attached to your race time. So let's start there because I really believe that you have really smart process goals, your other goals, your race goals, your objective goals are going to come. If you just train as you are supposed to train, the results are going to come. Sometimes we obsess too much on the pace or on the time, and we forget to do all the small things that will lead you to that big accomplishment or big personal record PR. So what are a few process goals that you can recommend to people?
Yeah, I think the process goal probably, because most people's outcome objective goals are going to be some sort of time-based thing, like a PR.
Yeah, we all want to run faster and achieve PRs. That's
and
true.
if it's not a PR, because I have met a lot of aging runners lately in their 60s and in their 70s who ran really well when they were in their 40s. So a PR in their 70s they feel is unrealistic. But even placing in your age group or a PR since you turned 60 or something like that, there's a lot of outcome goals. But I think runners too often focus on, I want to get under 25 minutes for 5K. And that's what I want to do. But then how are they going to do that? So I think one of the best things you could do is look at what you've recently done and figure out how you're going to improve upon that. So when I did the Boston half in October or in November, I had done the Petit Train du Nord exactly a year before almost. And I write down everything. So I had this little agenda and I saw my weekly mileage and what my long runs were and my speed sessions. And I was looking at that and, okay, how can I improve this? Can I go a little bit longer here? Can I do a bit more here? So I think one of the first things you should do is look at what you've done and grow from that, but be careful that the growth isn't massive. So if your last half was a year ago and you hit 50-kilometer a week, it's probably not smart to think, I'm going to do 80 or I'm going to do 70 even, but maybe you hit 50 before and now you try to do 60. So I think of all the things you look at, weekly mileage is probably one of the simplest ways to get better.
Yeah, for sure. And slowly. So what's the conclusion? Just focus on your weekly, on improving what you did last time that achieved your PR.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's the way?
Yeah, if there's room to run more and do a little bit more with speed and a little bit of a longer run, some people might feel like they've truly maxed out. And they're like, I can't do more than this per week because family and work commitments and stuff, and that's fine. But if there is some wiggle room to do more, whether it's race-specific speed work or a longer long run,
recovering better,
then and I guess the recovery. So if somebody looks at it and thinks, that's all I got, like I cannot do any more volume or any more intensity,
I don't have time or energy.
Yeah, then the thing is, well, can you go to sleep an hour earlier? Can you eat better? Can you manage your stress better? Because if you do the exact same training that you did a year or 6 months ago, but you get more sleep or you have less stress or you eat better, that's an improvement. That can improve your goal. So you haven't ran harder or done anything more with regards to running, but the other little things are better. So that can go a long way.
And I think an important thing here is that focus on one thing. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we're runners, and when I was a triathlete and hung out with triathletes, we obsessed over a million different things, right? And you see it on social media, and you read it, and you listen to this podcast, and it's like, okay, I need to strength train, and I need to recover better, and I need to eat healthier, and I need to run more mileage, and I need to do speed sessions. Sometimes it's way too much. We try to cram all that information into our heads. Then we try to cram all that things into our training program, and we end up doing nothing correctly.
Yeah, or just getting totally overwhelmed. And one of the things is stress management.
Exactly.
So then you're stressed because you're trying to jam all this stuff in, and Instagram and Facebook. Like there's all these people, even unfortunately elite athletes. Like I see Molly Seidel and Sarah Hall with the Graston tools. So they've got these like butter knife looking things that curve, and they're scraping their calves and their Achilles and talking about injury prevention. Like there's no research or science to support these little gimmicky tools, but they're getting paid to promote it. Yeah. But if you look at that and think, well, Sarah Hall spends X number of time doing this, and Molly Seidel K-tapes, and this person foam rolls, like this is all fluffy stuff that you don't need to make room in your head for. It's like, get the simple stuff right.
And those are not goals. Those are just extra things that you try to cram into your program or into your day. So having specific goals, even if it's eating a little healthier or sleeping 1 hour, half an hour more every night, managing my stress, meditating. We talk about being zen and stoicism in the first few episodes. That's gonna go way. It's gonna help you way more to do one thing consistently and to focus on one thing, that just trying to, I'm gonna foam roll now, and you do it for 1 week, and next week you do Graston, and next week you do another thing. You are not improving at anything at all. I'm reading right now a book called The Art of Learning. It's about a guy, Josh Watsinski, something. I'm terrible at names. I always say I'm terrible at names. But he was a super mega star chess player when he was a kid, from 8 years old to 20. And then he dropped chess because he got bored and started doing Tai Chi. And he became a world champion of Tai Chi. So the book is about his journey and how he approached learning. And there's a very interesting concept called investing loss. What does that mean? I used to follow golf. And for example, Tiger Woods, it's like the biggest golf star in the world. And a few years ago, he changed his swing to become better. Obviously, when he changed his swing, the first few tournaments or games he played, it was terrible because he was not used to it. But he was investing in loss or in the future. So he was losing something right now with the goal of coming back stronger than that. So I've been thinking about that in running, and that's without knowing it or without knowing the term. That's what I'm doing in my running. You remember that I've been telling that I want to build my mileage, right? Just to 100K a week easily or without destroying my body or being super tired. So I'm not going to be strength training for the next few months. I'm not going to be doing a lot of speed sessions for the next few months. So I'm probably not going to have my best marathon in Boston, but I'm investing in that long-term part. So, and I think it's working on your weaknesses. And I think that's another great goal. If your weakness is speed sessions, focus on speed sessions. If your weakness like mine is big mileage weeks or long runs, I'm investing in that right now. I'm going to lose on the strength. I'm going to lose on the speed. But when I work on my weakness and my weakness is becoming a strength, I can start to incorporating the things that I'm good at again. And I think that's a really interesting way to see about process goals, that I have no idea how much it's going to take. There's no time involved. There's no pace involved. It's just that process goal of becoming a better long run runner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an interesting. We try to do all the time everything, and we don't take the time to work on our weaknesses or work on one thing that it's going to improve over the long run.
Yeah, you have to prioritize. And I think if you're wondering what your weaknesses are, one thing I'll often ask runners that I see in the clinic, if they just have raced a half or a marathon or 10K, whatever, I'll ask them, like, at the end of the race, when you were pushing, what was stopping you? Was it your breathing? Were you just so winded you couldn't go any faster? Or was your breathing okay? It's just your calves and your quads were screaming at you to stop. And most of the time, runners will say one more or the other. It's
For
not
sure.
like everything. It's often like, oh, it was my breathing.
Yeah, you can
or,
pinpoint
oh, it was this.
one thing.
Yeah. So if they say it was their legs, my legs were just absolutely screaming at me, they were dead, it might mean they need to focus more on strength training. But if it was more their cardio, like say they did a 5K and then the last kilometer they were just huffing and puffing and could barely breathe, and then maybe they needed to do more aerobic and anaerobic combo of stuff in their training. So it's kind of think of what limited you in your most recent race.
Yeah, and you can start to pinpoint things very specifically. For example, when I went from 20 minutes in a 5K to 1750 to 1650 to 1645, I focused on one thing of my strength training. For example, when I was running around 20 minutes 5K, my VMO was the one that always felt sore. So I started during my strength training, I added specifically VMO exercises.
Which is the inside of your quad, if anybody is Googling. What is a
VMO?
VMO?
Yeah, really, yeah. I learned that, yes. At the beginning, I this muscle is hurting. I Google it, and it's called the VMO, the inside of your quad. Yeah. And then, okay, the VMO started to feel great, and I went from 20 to 18 minutes. When I started running 18 minutes, it was my Achilles and my calves. So inside my strength training, I started to adding specifically calf and Achilles exercise, heel raises. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
A lot of heel raises. And now that I'm at 1640, where it's like pushing me back or holding me back is my mid glute. It's the one that I'm going to work on. If my goal was to keep improving my 5Ks, that's the thing. That will be my process goal for next year. Improve my glute mid strength. But it's not, so I'm going to stop training and I'm focusing on mileage. But I think that's a very interesting thing of start to pinpoint the things that you can improve. And as you just mentioned it, I think every runner can say one thing, and maybe it's I'm not sleeping enough. I'm not recovering well enough. I don't take 5 times to wind out every day, stuff like that.
I think something you could do too is maybe make a list of everything you think you need to work on, and then prioritize it, like rank it. So
that's very interesting.
I think for me, for Boston, or for trying to qualify for Boston, so for St. Lawrence, it's trying to be a little bit more gradual in my build, as opposed to like 10% increase in weekly mileage every week. It's getting a few runs above 30K. It's making sure I'm consistent with my strength, even when my mileage is long. Like I've got this big list, but then it's like sleeping more and trying to eat a little bit more wholesome food. So I'll make a list so that if there's a week that I'm just stressed and overwhelmed, I'll try to get at least the top 2 in.
Yep.
But I want to say with the calves, it's really interesting because I'll get a lot of runners when I ask them that question, what limited you? Often if it's a marathon, they'll say their calves cramped up or their calves got really, really stiff and sore, and they'll automatically assume it's because they were dehydrated.
Yep.
But then if I ask them, well, what did you take in during the race? Often it sounds like it was plenty. And unless it was really, really hot, we'll start talking about calf strengthening. And they don't realize, like, the calves from the knee down does over 50% of the work when you're running.
And it's on a big muscle.
And exactly. So the soleus, which is probably, if you were going to pick any muscle to work on to improve performance, it would be the soleus because it's the powerhouse for runners. I remember this, I've told this story before, but this one guy, when it was kind of a really cool anecdotal study or story because he had Achilles issues and very accomplished runner. I think he was just under 40 minutes for a 10K. And when we did everything, his running form was great. His training program looked good. Strength everywhere was pretty good. He had very weak calves. So runners should be able to do 20 single leg calf raises on each leg. I believe you could do 8 or 7.
That's way too low.
So that's all we worked on. So it was kind of cool because we just did that one thing and it was what was needed to treat his Achilles issues. So we built up his calf raises, added weight.
That one extra thing, because he kept his strength training, I assume, he kept his mileage.
Everything
the one
else is the
extra
same.
thing was
Calf raises. Yeah. That's all he did. That's all he changed. And I feel like a year went by because it was in the middle of COVID, but he took a minute off his 10K time, which is huge for someone who's been running as long as he has. He's not a new runner, but just to kind of prove that point. So if you're someone that you think, oh yeah, at the end of a run, it's for sure my calves, don't automatically assume it's a hydration thing.
My nutritionist in Mexico told me that 90% of cramps in running or triathlons are not related to hydration. Are more related with strength.
Yeah. And for a nutritionist to say that, that's a big deal. Yeah.
I believe her.
Yeah.
100% I believe her.
Yeah.
Okay. So what other interesting process goal can people focus on?
So
sorry to interrupt you. But what we're trying to do right now is to give you a lot of ideas. It's not that you need to do this. We just mentioned prioritize your weaknesses or the things you want to work on. But what we're trying to do right now is to give you ideas, because sometimes people doesn't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah,
I don't know that I can prioritize. I didn't know that this can be a goal or something I can focus on. So the next few things we're gonna talk about are just ideas, not just go and do them.
Yeah, how to work on, getting those outcome goals. How do you go about doing them? So we talked about weekly mileage, adding longer runs, focusing on recovery, strength training. These are all good ones. I think another one, and you might be able to talk to this more as a certified running coach, but I don't think a lot of runners realize the importance of race-specific speed work. So if you look in the past at, okay, you did a half marathon and you did it with a big group of people who were all doing 5, 10, half full training, were you doing specific speed work for your race, or were you just doing what everybody else was doing? Because if I feel like you'll agree, what you would do for a 5K is going to be drastically different than what you would do for a marathon.
Yeah,
right?
they are. If you train for a marathon, your 5K is going to improve, and you run for a 5K, your marathon can improve, or you can run. Okay, let's not say improve. You can run a fast 5K if you are training for a marathon, and you can run a good marathon if you're trying for a fast 5K. But you're not going to have as good as a race you could have if you don't do those specific speed sessions.
Yeah.
And yeah, in 5Ks, 10Ks, you need to focus on 400s, 800s, maybe kilometers. And on marathons and half marathons, more mile repeats. And
yeah, more speed endurance for the marathon stuff, right?
Yeah, and the pacing is way different. We talked about last week when I'm training for a marathon, for example, my speed sessions are around 3:30 per kilometer. When I'm training for a 5K, my speed sessions are about 3 minutes per kilometer.
Yeah, because the distance is shorter with the 5K training.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think a lot of runners don't realize and you want to peak at the right time with it, because if you peak too early, like this is why you're not doing aggressive speed work, and same with me right now because it's December. Our races aren't for a few months, so we don't need to be doing this aggressive speed work so that we peak 1st of March, and then our race isn't until April. So I think kind of strategizing that race-specific speed work and when does it happen is important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You need to get a coach for it.
Yeah.
Or a good training program.
And this kind of ties into one of the other ones is I tell runners this all the time, like, be a student of the sport, learn. So listen to podcasts, read books, follow people on social media who you know are credible. Because
that's a hard thing to do.
That's the hard part, because just because someone has 100,000 followers doesn't mean
I've seen people just posting terrible advice, but they have 200,000 followers and they have 1,000 comments. Oh, great, thank you. This is great advice. And it's the most stupid, unproductive advice you can get.
I had someone, they have a lot. I can't even remember the Instagram account. I'm not going to say it because I don't want people to follow it because they post it's advice that I often disagree with. But it was like one of the best strengthening exercises for runners. And someone was sitting with a weight on their knee. I think it was like a 20-pound dumbbell on their knee, doing heel lifts, calf raises.
Okay.
With 20 pounds. So you're sitting, so you have nothing on that calf but 20 pounds.
It's better if you stand up.
If you're like an 80-year-old grandma that wants to learn how to walk up the stairs, maybe that's okay. But to run, you have to take at least your full body weight, then more. So it's better if you stand up, bend the knee, and do the calf raises.
There's more weight there,
but thousands of likes, all these comments, great exercise. And I'm just there like, oh, don't do that one. Because you could do 200 reps of those and not get tired.
I think a few times to just start an Instagram account or a social media account and to counter every stupid post I see.
There's a physio, his name's Adam Meekins, and he does it, and it's hilarious. He's really sarcastic and aggressive, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow him.
Yeah, he's really good. So that would be just learning. I think if you just don't have any time to run more, and you already feel like you eat right, and you feel like you're kind of nailing all the things, just read and listen a little bit more about running and stay on top of it, because what we're saying now might be different in 2 years' time.
Yeah, I definitely think differently today and train today that I did 5 years ago.
Yeah,
for sure. What other things can people focus on? We already talked about recovery.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very important one. Prioritize recovery. Let's talk about 3 or 4 ways people can prioritize recovery. One, sleeping more.
Yeah.
Maybe that's hard, but even half an hour can be a huge difference.
Can make a big difference. Even if you're just in bed but not asleep yet. Like if you go to bed an hour earlier but you can't get sleep, at least you're resting. Yeah, sleeping more, hydrating properly, like making sure that, especially the day before speed sessions and long runs, that you're hydrating, and then same afterwards, like getting in some good recovery.
I'm terrible at hydrating. Terrible.
Me too.
So what I did is I bought a 1-gallon water bottle, and my goal is to finish it. That's super easy. I don't have to count 8 glasses of water or stuff like that. It just, you finish that on top of my training. When I'm training, I have my flask, but on top, during the day, just finish that gallon of water and you are good to go. And that was a $20 investment.
Yeah. And that's something, it's so simple. If you just did that. So if you completely replicate training from last year and the only thing you change is you drink more, that could be substantial.
Water.
Like that. Yeah. Water. Good point. Drink more water, not pop, beer, vodka. The eggnog, there's been a lot of eggnog in yours lately. But yeah, if you drink more, like that's just such a simple little thing. It's free if you have good fresh tap water, and it doesn't take a lot of thought.
If you're in Florida, I was in Florida in November, and the tap water is that.
Yeah, so don't drink
that.
Disgusting. Maybe it's not free in Florida.
No, but we're talking about a lot of different things we've done, right? Strength training. This is years of. It's not just one thing we did in 2022. It's been years. I improved this and I improved it, and it starts to become part of your daily routine. And I still have issues drinking that much water, but it's not that hard.
Yeah. I think another recovery thing, and I'll kind of lump it all together, and it would be, these are things a lot of runners prioritize, but there's not a lot of research to support that they're beneficial for runners.
Okay.
But some runners might enjoy doing it. So like using a massage gun, foam rolling, getting in an ice bath, getting in an Epsom salt bath, things like that, stretching, yoga. There really isn't a lot of research to say that this stuff improves performance or recovery. But if you enjoy doing it, like if I get a runner who just loves yoga and it's their happy place other than running, they should like prioritize that.
Yeah,
I
for-
hate yoga.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm not going to prioritize it because I know there's no science saying that it helps with running, but if you feel very at peace when you do it, then go for it.
Yeah, totally. And that's a way of manage stress.
Yeah.
And stress is a big part of improving your recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So those are a lot of ideas you can do to improve your running and to focus and have goals that are not related to pace and time.
Yeah.
But pace and time are really important for runners. If I didn't have a goal pace or a race pace goal, I don't think I've trained that hard.
I think it's what makes running so special too, because soccer and rugby and football, like there's all these goals that you have and you reach a certain age and then you're not at your peak anymore. But with running,
And you depend
there's
on other
just-
people.
Yeah, yeah.
That's one of the things I love about running. When I was playing rugby or basket or football, you depend on other people. I'm super committed and I'm going to be there training every time. But sometimes half of the team doesn't come because it's Christmas or because it's too hot or too cold or they got drunk and stuff like that. It pisses me off. Like you have no idea. So in running, you have complete control over your goals.
Yeah. And you compete with yourself. Like when I do St. Lawrence, there's people I know who are doing the St. Lawrence Marathon. There's some I know who will be way ahead of me. There's some I know that'll be very close to me. I don't care about beating those people. I just have a time goal. So if I beat everyone around me that I know, but I run a 340, I'm not going to be happy because my goal is under 330.
Even if you beat everyone.
Exactly. If everybody that I go there to run with beats me, but I do a 328, I'm going to be ecstatic.
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of running. It's you run with people, but you run your own race and you have your own times. And if you don't get them, there's always another run.
Yeah. Okay, but the mistake I see here with running time goals, is that people sometimes put those time goals very randomly.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never run a marathon, but I want to run a marathon in 3 hours and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's possible. My first marathon was 3:03. But where did you get that information from? I think there are 3 main ways to ballpark your times. Because if you've never done a marathon or a 5K or a 10K or whatever race, you can ballpark it in a few different ways.
Mm-hmm.
One, we've talked it before, it's the 6-minute test.
Yes.
Why the 6-minute test? Because it measures your VO2 max or your V dot VO2 max. That's your velocity at VO2 max. And that's, based on research, way better at predicting racing times and performance than VO2 max. What's that? You warm up for 10, 15 minutes, get your heart rate get lower again, just like resting heart rate, and then you go as fast as you can for 6 minutes. Like you almost are puking and just exhausted after 6 minutes.
100% effort.
Exactly. And you have a pace there. That pace, there are a lot of calculators. There's one in Manister that the beat dot app has it. Then you have some parameters and goals or race predictions based on that time. And it's
a specific time.
And that's a super easy test to do. It's easy to perform it. It's hard to nail it because you usually start way too fast. But over time, when you start doing more and more and more, you get better at the test by itself. And it's an easy workout or test that doesn't tax your body too much. So you can do it, you can add it to a speed workout, you can change one long run for it, and it's not going to affect your...
Mm-hmm. It's only 6 minutes.
It's only 6 minutes.
Yeah, you don't need a big recovery time from it.
Obviously, it's more accurate when you compare that time for 5Ks and 10Ks because it's a shorter distance, but it gives you a ballpark of your marathon or half marathon pace.
Yeah, you have somewhere to start.
Exactly. If it's 3:30 and you wanted to do 3:30, that's awesome and amazing. But if it says that it's more around 4 hours, maybe you can start adjusting your goals and your ideas because that's what your fitness is telling you right now.
Yeah, and then you could do the test again in 8 weeks and then see if it's more in line with what you thought you could do.
When I'm training seriously, I do it every 6 weeks because...
The 6-minute speed test?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because it adjusts my paces. All my paces are adjusted by that. My interval paces, my tempo paces, my threshold paces, my easy run paces, all my paces are based on that test. So today I'm slower than in 6 weeks. Because
Yeah.
and 12 weeks I'm going to be faster. So your paces need to be
You have to
adjusted.
change it. Yeah.
But it gives you a ballpark of where your times can be.
Do you use, so there's an app you can download called VDOT.
Yeah.
Do you just use that, or do you use the Jack Daniels book as well? Or is it all in the app?
It's the same thing.
Okay. So people could just download the app, which is free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
That's my way to up when I'm running. Okay, what's my pace?
Mhm.
And it's not the pace I want to be. For example, my goal for a marathon can be 3 hours. And the easy pace or the long run pace for a 3-hour marathon, it's around 4:40 to 5:10 per kilometer easy pace or long run pace. I can't run right now if my 6-minute test is not telling me that my marathon right now could be 3 hours.
Yeah. So it all ties together.
Exactly.
And you said the 6-minute test is better for 5K, 10K because those are shorter distances. So with the half and the full, I guess if you've recently raced a 10K, that can kind of give you a good idea of a half. A half race can give you a good idea of a full.
Yeah.
Like those would be more accurate, do you think, than the 6-minute test for the longer stuff?
Depends. It depends because you need to tie those things up. Because if you say to me, yeah, my fastest half marathon is 1 hour and 30. So we can predict a marathon of 3:30, something like that. Yeah, but my half was 2 years ago. And that's not.
And then you could say, do you feel as fit as you were then? Or no,
exactly.
like it's,
Let's do a 6-minute test. If it tells us that your half marathon pace is around 1:30, okay, everything is it starts to tie up. You are as fit as then, and we can say, okay, based on that time and based on your fitness right now, a 3:30 marathon is very possible.
Yeah.
So recent races results are a good predictor. For example, your half marathon from November can be a great starting point to build for your full marathon because it was like a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So if it's and you need to start there. You don't need to think, okay, my half marathon was 1:35. My marathon can be that. No, your marathon today can be that. Let's train it to be even faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's why you'll see a lot of running coaches will recommend doing a half marathon 4 to 6 weeks out from a full marathon. And probably because one, you get race experience, but then two, you get a feel for what you could possibly do.
What realistically you can achieve on your marathon.
Yeah.
And the other one is your easy run paces. But this needs to be tied up with your heart rate. Easy paces are recommended to be in zone 2 if you use 5 zones. A lot of people use 3 zones. For example, I think Jack Daniels use 3 zones. It's 1, 2, and 3. You need to train 80% in zone 1. You dismiss zone 2, and you train hard in zone 3. So if your easy pace is in zone 2, that can be also a good way to say how fast your marathon or your 5Ks can be. There are a few formulas. We have a podcast plan in a few weeks about that, just helping you with the math. Okay, if my easy pace is 6 minutes, what can I expect for a marathon? What can I expect for? And it's an easy pace tied to your heart rate. That's very important. It's not that subjective thing that, oh yeah, my easy pace is 6 minutes. Why?
Yeah.
It's not a subjective thing, but yeah, those are 3 very interesting things to have realistic outcome goals. Not just, I think one of the worst things people can do is get a out of the blue goal and train for that.
Because it may be way too fast or way
too easy.
slow and then you finish and you're like, oh.
Yeah. You have both parts. There are overconfident runners and underconfident runners.
I remember doing my 5K in the fall and almost breaking 20 minutes. And the big reason is I didn't think I was fit enough to go under 20. So I was thinking of when I did 1957 in 2019, and I was thinking I wasn't as fit. But if I had done a 6-minute speed test like 3 weeks before that or 2 weeks before that, I probably would have went, oh, maybe I should try to go under 20. This says that I could. Yeah. So that's a big lesson learned for me this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are 3. If you know the math, and we will help you with that in a few episodes, doing the 6-minute test, the race performances, or the easy runs, we will help you with that. And with the VDOT app, you can start training way smarter than you are training right now, if you are not using it.
Yeah.
So that was the episode of process goals versus outcome goals. I have to say, when we started to think about this episode, I thought it was going to be like a 20-minute episode. Like, what can we talk about process goals and outcome goals? But it's been 15 minutes and we're still talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk all day about it, I feel like.
Yeah, but we're going to put a pause on it.
Yeah.
And go to the athlete of the week.
Tiffany Thame.
Tiffany Thame. We struggle a lot with names.
I know. That's a cool name. I like how it rhymes.
Tiffany Thame. Yeah.
She's Canadian. So she lives in Dubai now, but she's Canadian. She is the runner of the week because she just ran a Guinness World Record. She did a 3:20:58 marathon.
In Abu Dhabi?
Yep. Which is fast, but not Guinness World Record
But wait
fast.
for it.
But she was pushing her 3-year-old son and 1-year-old daughter in a double stroller. And she did a 3:20 marathon.
That's it. Super impressive.
Yeah. So she also came 6th in her age group.
Do you know her age?
No,
No?
I don't.
Because even she needs to be like 20 years old not to have a Boston qualifying time. If she's over 30, that's a Boston qualifying time.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So
Imagine
she
getting a
couldn't
Boston
qualify.
qualifying time pushing a stroller,
Yeah.
a double stroller.
Yeah.
I think I ran like twice pushing a stroller, a single one, and my shoulders were destroyed after 5K.
Yeah, it's slow. I remember I did go once and I was like, this is so hard. And then my husband realized I didn't have the tires pumped up all the way. And then when he did that, I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be.
This is not that hard.
It wasn't so bad when I got into it, but and we've got nice flat cycling paths around our house, but going uphill, like I wonder if that marathon's hilly because pushing a double stroller uphill would be so hard.
I don't think that's hilly because the times were really fast.
Yeah.
And that's an impressive. Like, congratulations to Tiffany. What?
Yeah, Tiffany Thame.
Tiffany Thame.
Yes.
Mother of 2, 6th in her age group, pushing a double stroller, and she got a Guinness World Record.
Yeah. And she's Canadian. That's
And
the
she's
coolest
Canadian.
part. Yeah.
In Abu Dhabi. So
Yeah.
that's we have people over the place. And we have two I think one very interesting chasing sprint and a very sad chasing sprint. The good chasing sprint, it's also in the Abu Dhabi Marathon. And I think it's really funny because the pacer won. They paid a pacer. I don't know who the elites were, but they paid a pacer to pace. And he ended up winning
He stole the show.
Yeah. I read that his goal was to get the men running the first half in around 1 hour and 3 minutes, and he accomplished it. But then people couldn't keep up with him, and around kilometer 30, he already have a 4-minute lead on everyone. So he said to himself, "I will go for it," and they let him. I think my wife asked me that, can he win? Maybe in other marathons, no, but in that marathon, he won. He won $50,000 as a prize money, and his bib was Pacer M2.
Oh, wow. Because I often see pacers drop out.
Oh, yeah.
Like they'll do half or 2/3 of the race and then it's like, okay, you're on your own. Or you see them at the finish, like when Emily Sisson did her record for the women's marathon for the States, you'll see they have pacers and then they'll just kind of fade away in the background and kind of let the person take the limelight, you know? But that's interesting. He just took over.
But her paces were men.
Yes.
That's what I read, that it's way harder in a women's race for that to happen because pacers are usually men, and so they can win.
Yeah.
Because there's a women marathon.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Exactly, they're not allowed. Or they will win the men's marathon, but not the women. So that's way harder to achieve. I think it was really fun. And it was a fast marathon. 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 20 seconds.
So, and he didn't even plan. Maybe he did plan it. I'd love to hear an interview with him. Did he?
I'm going to get paid for being a pacer, and then I'm going to get paid for winning. Yeah. That's a double whammy for that dude.
Yeah, he had it. That was a good payday.
What's his name? I'm going to...
Timothy, we'll say.
Timothy Kiplagat-Rono.
Yeah.
Pacer M1. Won the Abu Dhabi Marathon.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he's chasing sprints number 1.
And chasing sprint number 2, it's a sad one, and I get really mad about this kind of news. The 2021 Boston Marathon winner women got stripped of her title and got banned for 6 years for racing because she did drugs.
Yeah.
prohibited substances. That's it.
I don't understand why, you're going to get caught, whether it's now or in 5 years when testing advances. I just don't understand. I guess it might be the money for some, it's a living. Like if you win a big cash prize like that could be years of not having to work and
all the sponsors that they come with it, right? It's Lance Armstrong, he cheated like crazy during the Tour de France, but he made so much money that he doesn't care about that. I guess. And now he does again. He do conferences and motivations. He's a motivational speaker and stuff like that. Even though he cheated and everyone,
he's making it work.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Diana, we're very disappointed of you.
I know it
all the running community is very disappointed.
Yeah, there's a lot of this on in the news lately. Just different athletes getting banned for doping, and
it's the second Kenyan winner of the Boston Marathon strip of her title. Yeah. The woman that won it, Rita Jeptu, I guess that's her name. How it pronounced. She also won the 2014 marathon and got stripped of it. It says here that she failed. She failed the drug test.
Yeah. I feel bad for the runners who come second.
Because
so they don't get their day.
Exactly.
Like now you get your medal, but who cares? It's a year later.
40 years later.
Yeah. That's
I read something about
sad.
On the Olympics, something in 2012 this week also got stripped of her medal.
Yeah, that's the thing. The testing can advance, and years down the road you can.
Yeah.
Very
you
sad.
will get your medal 10 years later, but they take away your glory.
Yeah, it's not the same.
So thank you for listening to this episode. If you are listening during holiday week, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. This is our last episode of the year, number 10. I think that's really cool, double digits episodes. And next week, our goal is to make the top 10 lessons of the first 10 episodes, because we talk too much. It's 10 hours of podcast, but I think they're really valuable lessons that we can talk about next week. We can pinpoint the 10 biggest lessons, and we will talk about that next week.
Yeah, we'll simplify things.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have an awesome day, week, New Year. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you love it, give it a share. Please consider subscribing to the show and leaving a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify. And visit chasingprs.run for all the latest episodes, get our free newsletter, and all the cool running stuff we have there. Thanks for joining.